Today I'm going to show you how to do that, or something like it, on the piano. What I was doing there was noodling. I was just kind of messing around, improvising on a couple of scales that we'll talk about in a few minutes. There wasn't underlying chord progression, there wasn't a strict beat that I was following, it was pure improvisation. Now noodling is kind of fun, okay, it's a great way of showing off at parties, but it's also a really fantastic way of developing your right hand skills so that when you do start playing chords in the left, when there is a strict beat to play against, your right hand is much more confident. It will have lots of moves under its fingers that you developed when you were just noodling away pretty randomly. Let's find out how to get started. By the way, if you enjoy this tutorial, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and maybe also check out my books, because if you enjoy this, I'm pretty sure you will love them. Right now, I have a bundle deal running on the digital editions of my 3 current books: How to Really Play the Piano, the stuff your teacher never taught you, 7 Studies in Pop Piano, and An Introduction to Cocktail Piano. Right now, that bundle deal means you can get all 3 for £18.95, which is a 30% saving on what you would pay if you bought them separately. Just head over to billspianopages.com/bundle to find out more. So what am I doing when I'm just noodling around like this? How do I know which notes to play and in what order? Let's start with some basics. Now, everything I'm doing here at the moment is based around the note C. I'm not going to say that we're in the key of C major or the key of C minor, because once you start playing around with these blues notes in particular, then the whole idea of key begins to get a bit ambiguous and a bit tricky. So I'm going to park that for now. And what I want you to have in your head is just the idea that C is our kind of home note, our tonic note, if you're familiar with the technical terminology. It's kind of where everything feels settled and finished. Now, when I was improvising, I was using the notes of 2 different scales. I think of them as a combined scale, but for now let's treat them separately. The first one was C blues. C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and back to C at the top of the scale. So the C blues scale. Let's play those notes again. C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, C. And because it's a scale, we can run it up and down the piano keyboard as much as we like. Yeah. Now, mixed in with the notes of the C blues scale, I was using the notes of the C major pentatonic scale, which is a bit different. It goes C, D, E, G, A, and then back up to C at the top of the scale. C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A. C major pentatonic. So when I was messing around, when I was noodling, I was combining the notes of those 2 scales. The only notes that I wasn't playing were D flat, A flat, and B. Because if you add those 2 scales together, they basically include every note on the piano keyboard apart from those 3. I could have used those 3, but I didn't. I stayed away from them because if I had used them, it would have kind of changed the character of what I was doing. I'm after this kind of jazzy bluesy sound, and so I'm deliberately staying away from those 3 notes. Okay, it wouldn't have stopped sounding jazzy if I'd used them, yeah, but because of the particular character I was after, I stuck to the notes of C blues and C pentatonic. So you probably noticed when I was noodling around that most of the time I'm just playing single notes, okay? But I'm not playing single notes all of the time. Every now and then I'm playing 2 notes together. This is what we call a dyad. It's not a chord. Really important piece of music theory for you. A chord needs at least 3 notes, okay, to give it what we call its identity. If we just play 2 notes together, that's a dyad. And I was including quite a few dyads in my noodling when I was playing a few minutes ago, just because it kind of thickens up the sound, and it also gives me access to quite a few interesting little bits of lick and riff. Just there, I did play 3 notes together. Just very briefly, okay? So we're not just sticking to playing 1 note at a time. When you get started with noodling, it's probably a good idea to stick to 1 note at a time to begin with, as you get familiar with scales, but we'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that I was doing was using quite a lot of crush notes, okay? Now in jazz, a crush note is typically where we go from a black note to a white note very quickly using just 1 finger. So that's a crush note from the F sharp of the blues scale up to the G. Do you see how I did it really quickly, just using one finger? I can do it as part of a dyad like that, okay? Or I could crush from the E flat of the blues scale to the E of the C major pentatonic scale. You don't always have to separate the notes. Sometimes what I like to do is just kind of literally crush them together, play them at the same time, okay? But a really, really cool effect. You can also crush from white note to white note, or even from white note to black note, but that needs separate fingers, yeah? Classical musicians talk about these things as being grace notes, and they always use separate fingers. But because we're dirty jazz players, we squash things together where we can using a single finger. And we look out for opportunities to include crush notes, okay? So where we've got a black note immediately below a white note, that's always going to be a good spot to put a little bit of crushing in. Okay, so the big zillion-dollar question is, how do you start doing all this noodling stuff for yourself? What I'm going to do is assume that you're relatively new to jazz and blues and all the rest of it, and take you through a pretty simple, quick method that you can use. And it starts with getting familiar with the two scales that we've looked at. C blues and C major pentatonic. Like I said, I often like to think of them as a combined blues scale, an extended blues scale, but for now we'll continue to treat them differently. What I want you to do is work on the C blues scale to start with. Now when I say work on it, I don't just mean mindlessly play it up and down like it's a regular piano scale. Yeah, I've got a more fun way of doing it than that. What I want you to do is play up and down the scale, but in a kind of random way. So we're going to go up a little bit and then down a little bit. Just playing all the notes of the scale up and then down. Let's go up a bit further. And down and up again, and up and down again. Yeah? I don't want you to use a specific fixed fingering for the blues scale. It's hard to find a fixed fingering for a blues scale because you end up relying on just those three fingers. What I want you to do is make a point of using all of your fingers, and in fact go out of your way to use 4 and 5, because it's really tempting just to rely on these three. And most of the time that's fine, you can use those three fingers, but you don't want these guys getting weak and lame, okay? So make a point of using all 5 fingers. Now you will do this probably quite slowly and with quite a few mistakes at first, and that is absolutely fine. Do not worry about that. Remember, we're just going down and up at random. Okay, just sit there, just do it while you're reading the paper, eating your breakfast, whatever. Just get those notes under your fingers using a variety of different fingers. When you're confident with the blues scale, or when you're sick of it and you want to break, try the same with the pentatonic. Again, don't worry too much about the individual fingers that you're using. Just make a point of varying them, okay? So that is the first step in your method. Get comfortable with those two scales using that kind of random up and down exercise. Now once you're confident with that up and down exercise, you can move on to the next stage of the method, which is, as you might imagine, to combine the notes of the two scales. But I don't want you to do it in that kind of up and down approach, okay? You would have your fingers tripping over themselves left, right and centre. Instead, what I want you to do to start with is choose a single hand position based on a C major chord. It can be any inversion or shape of C major chord, but for now we're going to stick with this root position C major chord, okay? We're not going to play the chord, we just want our hand in that position. And starting on either the thumb or the fifth, I just want you to play pretty random notes from both scales. And don't worry if it sounds terrible, don't worry if the rhythm's not there, just get comfortable doing it in that position. And as you grow in confidence, just try using different fingers. So maybe start on the third up here. Try some of those little trills that I was using, okay? Just some of the, maybe copy some of the movements that I'm using there. But again, stay in that octave, in that kind of rough position for now. Okay, and begin to listen to what you're doing. Notice what are the kind of jazzy bluesy effects and what aren't. So for example, you'll often find that if you're on an F sharp, a natural place to go next is a G or a C, but going to a D next doesn't quite work. Okay, yeah, likewise with an E flat, a natural thing to do is to go to an E or to a C, or maybe up to a G, but going to an A doesn't quite work. Now there are a bunch of rules you could learn there, yeah, about sort of harmonic form and structure and the implied chords that you're playing and all the rest of it, but the best way to learn those rules, such as they are, is by ear. Experiment, play around, okay? Learning and play are the same thing, okay? So mess around, experiment, see what begins to feel right and what sounds cool. But just keeping yourself in this one position now, okay? You could do it on, from the E to the E. Notice what sounds cool and what doesn't, and don't worry if it's really slow and clunky to start with. The secret is just to sit there and go at it. Now, as you grow in confidence, that's when you can begin to move up and down the keyboard in a much bigger way. And this is where you come across the big challenge, which is basically fingers, okay? And having the right finger in the right place at the right time is kind of the art here. And often you'll find that what you're doing as you grow in confidence is kind of be opportunistic with your fingers. Oh, my fifth's there. Look, I can hit a C with it. My thumb's there, it's right over that C. Okay, so develop, play around. Like I said, playing is learning. Okay, mess around, listen to what works. Don't worry at all about rhythm, about harmony, any of that stuff. You're purely playing the notes. And as you get more confident with that, start to do some of the other stuff that I was talking about. Maybe play some Dyads. If you've got little riffs coming along, maybe copy some of the ones I was using. Try some crush notes and stuff like that. And it just takes time. It's a question of practicing, playing around, seeing what comes out. Once you get into this, there's loads more stuff you can do. You can start to do it in other keys. Okay, so let's imagine we have an F tonality. Once again, I'm being careful not to call it F major. We can do it in F. Again, it's a question of working out the blues scale and the major pentatonic scale of F. I'll let you do that for yourselves and playing around with it. And you'll find that the geography of the keyboard is different, okay? So in C, our fifth note was G and we had the lovely black note but below it. In F, our fifth note is C and we don't have that. If we want to crush, we have to do it with two fingers, okay? If you start to get really brave, try it in more complicated keys like E flat. Yeah, or maybe even start to drop in bits of chords. If you know a little bit about chord playing. The great rule here is free and easy, okay? Yes, put energy into it, put passion into it, but don't be obsessed with, chords or rhythm or the rest of it, because we're not worrying about that here. Eventually, you can start to add this to whatever songs you're playing, play it over a chord progression, play it in a particular rhythm, play it around a melody, whatever you want. But for now, you are purely noodling. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. You might also like to follow me on social media. Twitter, Facebook and Instagram links are all below. Don't forget that bundle deal, either 3 of my ebooks for £18.95 over at billspianopages.com/bundle. And if you want something extra, do also please check out my Patreon crowdfunding campaign at patreon.com/BillHilton. Lots of really great stuff over on my Patreon and it doesn't cost very much to support me at all. Okay, so happy noodling. Leave a comment if you have any questions or you just want to say hello, and I'll see you next time.